everybody, Tim with Collect Jurassic, back with more exciting toy news from Mattel's Jurassic World toy line. There are lots of new figures still on the way for 2020, even though we're almost through summer. Those include toys from their Primal Attack toy line, as well as toys that coincide with the upcoming Netflix TV show, Camp Cretaceous, the animated series that's hitting Netflix later this month. So lots of new toys in the way. We do have some images we're going to take a look at today. I'll kind of give you my rundown of them. So without further ado, let's get started with some of these new figures, starting with Massive Biters. And this is the Massive Biters Sarcosuchus. So we actually already had a Sarcosuchus figure come out this year. I think it was very popular, it went over very well. Collectors were happy to not only collect an all-new species, but maybe collect something that wasn't quite a dinosaur, sort of like a crocodilian. So we're already getting a new version of that figure, and as you can see here, it has a radically different paint application. Even though it literally just came out this year, they're already revisiting it, and I personally am very excited for this version. The previous version was definitely a little more understated, but as you can see on this figure, there's a lot more vibrant paint going on than that first release. Obviously, we have those bright splashes of color on the side, as well as sort of a more contrasted dark and light gray on the top and bottom of the figure. But other than that, it is the same figure with the same action features as before. Being a massive biter, you're going to be able to move the tail. That makes the head move and the jaws snap. And honestly, the Primal Attack feature on this figure was also one of the best executions of the actual kind of mechanism for all of 2020. So getting another shot at this, I think the previous version's still in stores, but people will be able to track down this new one later this year with this all-new paint application to kind of add to their existing Sarcosuchus enclosure in their park. So moving on to the next Massive Biter figure, we have Albertosaurus. You might recognize this figure as a battle damage release. And this new figure, it's got a couple things different than that one. Obviously, it does not have the battle damage. But first off, let's talk about the Albertosaurus. This is another very popular release. The first one came out for Dino Rivals. Great sculpt. Just felt, very accurate scientifically with lots of detail. And then there was another battle damage version that came out a little bit rarer, a little bit harder to track down. So now it's joining the Primal Attack ranks, and it does have that Primal Attack feature, as you can see. So you can move the tail, which moves the neck and probably makes the jaw open and close as well. So take the battle damage figure and retool it a little bit, as well as give it an all-new paint job. You can also tell in these last two photos we looked at that the paint job is kind of different between both of them. So you have this more saturated paint tone versus what it actually looks like in the box. If I had to guess, I would say that the photo of it in the box is probably more likely what we're going to see in the final figure. Sometimes these preliminary images, aren't always the most accurate or sort of the final production version of the figure. So take this particular photo with a grain of salt. I think that they did a little bit more color correcting on it for the box shot. But all the same, third Albertosaurus, great figure already. So excited to see how the Primal Attack version differs from the battle damage. Moving on to Sound Strikes, we have 3 new Sound Strike figures coming. Again, they all coincide with Camp Cretaceous, so no just general non-Camp Cretaceous figures coming out in this next assortment coming in 2020. And the first figure we have, as you can see in front of you, is the Pteranodon. So the Primal Attack Pteranodon has already came out before with a different paint application, but this one is, again, for Camp Cretaceous. I can't say for sure if this literal paint deco is a Pteranodon that's in the show, but it probably is safe to assume that it's at least based on something from the show. And like a lot of Camp Cretaceous figures, it definitely has a certain style to it that I really like. I mean, I think that all the Camp Cretaceous figures really look good together. Maybe I wouldn't say to use the word cartoony. They definitely have a more loud, stylistic paint application, and the Soundstrike Pteranodon here is no different. One thing I think is interesting about the Soundstrike Pteranodon is, it has these mechanisms on it, the 2 buttons. One makes the tails flap, and the other one makes the jaw open and the sound emit the noise that sound strikes make. But unlike a lot of sound strike figures where you're swiveling and kind of rotating the head, this one's a little different. It's almost just like a dual attack pteranodon with electronics added. But all the same, we're getting another large pteranodon. There's so many of these figures at this point across all the retools. So what's one more as long as it's based on something from Camp Cretaceous? The next figure we have to look at, again, another Camp Cretaceous figure. This time it's the Triceratops, another Triceratops figure similar to the Pteranodon. Mattel has given us a lot of versions of this figure, which makes sense. I mean, these are popular species, both Pteranodon and Triceratops, with kids. I know a lot of collectors probably think they're a little bit, tend to be more shelf warmers, but I think that's just because they come out with these species so much that they're going to be some of the ones left on shelves. But now we're looking at another Triceratops on the way. The paint app, again, is maybe something based on the show. Not necessarily guaranteed that this is what Triceratops looks like on the show, but it's still a fun paint application with that bright speckling on the back and the crest. I'm still waiting for a more film-accurate Triceratops as far as paint application goes, at least more film-accurate to the first film, Jurassic Park. But, again, like Pteranodon, what's one more Triceratops as long as it's, tying into something from the animated series. And it's something, again, same with Pteranodon. When you put it next to the other Camp Cretaceous figures, it does sort of fit in, sort of jive in with the style they have on the deco for all of those figures. So this Triceratops is just sort of consistent with that. But same thing as the previous Primal Attack version, where the tail moves the head and the sound and all that. So just the paint would be updated here. Our next figure is very exciting for a couple reasons. This is the Soundstrike Grim Baryonyx. Grim probably being the name of the figure in the show, name of the character in the show, the dinosaur character. It's literally printed on the box in this photo, so it can't just be an internal code name. It's got to be something named in the show, similar to Toro. But yeah, I mean, I'm really excited about this figure. The paint application, boom, hits you right there. I love the little outlined stripe pattern on the side. It reminds me of the original Dilophosaurus from Jurassic Park. But yeah, the paint application aside, this is a Soundstrike version of Baryonyx. So even though we have a lot of Baryonyx figures, we don't have one quite like this that's been retooled so you can move that tail, which in turn moves the neck. I believe the jaw is probably independently posable from the action feature, like most Soundstrike figures, which is cool. Great for toy photographers that you can kind of have control over that jaw. But the paint application is just really, really nice on this one. It definitely feels based off of real-world animals. With that kind of waterline sort of illustration on the side. I just think I'm really excited about this one. And I'm excited to see, how the Soundstrike mechanism works with this figure. But that aside, very excited that it's also being called Grim. I know from the first wave of Camp Cretaceous figures, we got a lot of little Baryonyx toys, but they never had names, even though we had 3 of the same species with different paint applications that had to be significant. But we're finally getting names on the Baryonyx. At least in this case, it's named Grim. I know there was already a Baryonyx figure released in the Camp Adventure set this year that did not have a name. But if I had to guess, it probably, was probably named later in the series. And we'll kind of hopefully get all 3 Baryonyx eventually to sort of, round out our roster of dinosaur characters featured in the show. So this one's definitely a little more special than the other Soundstrike repaints in that it's a retool and it's something that's definitely based on the show. But that's all we got. Again, I think what I'm most excited about these releases is what is coming in to tie with Camp Cretaceous, the show. But those massive biters are super cool too. Sarcosuchus, obviously, as I said, a very popular figure. So definitely no harm releasing one with an all-new paint application. And, of course, Albertosaurus, previously battle damage, previously exclusive to Walmart. So kind of adding it to the massive biter assortment means it'll be more available. But that's all we have to cover for today. I'm sure there'll be more toy reveals as we know there's more on the way. So thanks for watching. I'm Tim with Collect Jurassic, and we'll see you next time.